For the next few sessions, we're going to be talking about security once again, but this time with a focus on host security. Now, we've discussed network security in other sessions, and it's only appropriate that we talk about host security as well, because hardening your system and using your system securely is very important. The first thing we're going to talk about is the use of Sudo. Earlier in the course, we talked about how to get normal users access to the root account, because we discussed the fact that logging in directly as root all the time is generally not a good idea, since processes that run while root's logged in gets root's privileges, and sometimes those processes could do damage to the system. Now, adding a user to the wheel group to get access to the root account works, but it's generally not a good idea because you give them access completely to the root account and there's no accountability. Sudo is a much better way to do this, to accomplish this. What you do with Sudo, you basically give a user access to root. They can run with root privileges, but only certain files and programs, and it offers accountability in that use of Sudo is logged. So you get accountability for your users and you get more control over what they can do and how they do it. You can easily modify the etc sudoers group file to add a user to sudoers so that that person can have sudoer capability. There are also other graphical tools that will do this well. We're going to take a look at how to give someone sudo access, and we're actually going to change up the pace a little bit and go with the graphical tool. We are in our OpenSUSE 11 VM, and we're going to change up the pace a little bit by offering you the chance to look at a graphical way of doing some things on Linux and Unix. And right now what I would like to do is open up a terminal window, and we're actually going to try to run a program as a normal user. I'm logged in as Bobby. I'm not logged in as root or anything like that, anything with any privileges. So what I'd like to do is try to run a program called Yast. That automatically tells us that we might have privileges to do this, but we might not. We may require super user or root privileges. We definitely don't have root's path because we couldn't just type in the command and get it to work. So let's go sbin/yast, and what we are going to get is the Yast Control Center. However, we get a message up front that says Yast Control Center is not running as root. You can only see modules that do not require root privileges. And the modules we're going to see are basically things that really don't affect the system too much. Software, network services, the LDAP browser, and support. So we really don't get a lot out of this. So what we may have to do then in that case is be able to log in and use this software using root privileges. But we want to avoid logging in directly as root. So let's go ahead and fix this problem. What we want to do then is log out. So we're going to log out of our OpenSUSE and log back in as root and fix this problem. This is a little bit more work up front, but it will solve the problem and we won't have to do this every single time. So let's log in as root now. And how we're going to fix this problem is to go and edit the sudoers file, the /etc/sudoers. And normally you actually don't edit that directly. You edit it with a program called visudo. Like a lot of other configuration files, sometimes you can make mistakes. The one good thing about the graphical utilities is they limit your mistakes. You may not make a lot of mistakes using a graphical utility. That is one advantage to using a GUI. So let's go down to Security and Users, and we're going to click on Sudo here. Now, some other Linux distributions and Unix distributions have the ability to do this graphically. Some do not. In some cases, you simply have to edit the text configuration file yourself. So let's go ahead and add a rule, and we're going to add Bobby to this rule. And we're going to say it's okay to do this on all hosts. And who do we want to run as? Well, we want to run as root, of course. So we're going to say run as root. And let's add a particular command. We don't want the user Bobby to do everything, but we want to be able to allow him to do certain things. Put in the correct path. Let's say OK. And we don't need to put any parameters in there. And so now we've edited it so the user Bobby can run Yast, and that's it. We could add other commands if we want him to have limited access and be able to do some limited administration things on the system. So let's say OK. It's going to write the settings to etc sudoers. And actually, while we're here, let's go ahead and take a look at etc sudoers. And as you can see, the change that we made down there is at the bottom. We added Bobby, all hosts, and we're emulating root, and that's the command we can run. We could have edited that directly with vsudo if we wanted. So let's log back out and see if Bobby can now execute Yast without having to worry about logging in as root. Okay, we're back in our desktop. Let's open up a terminal and see if this works. Now, we don't just type in sbin yast. What we want to do is type in sudo sbin yast. Sudo enables us to specify that we want to run this command using root privileges. And it gives us the little warning banner here telling us to be cautious. and we type in the password, and now we're getting the full Yes Control Center, all modules. So now we can actually affect the system. We can configure software, hardware, the system options, network devices, network services, security, and that's something that's actually very important, virtualization support, and several other things. So we've actually been able to run this command using root privileges. So that's just an example of Sudo and why it's a good thing to use for security purposes on your Unix or Linux system. We saw a graphical way to configure Sudo. We know that we can do that also by editing the configuration file /etc/sudoers as well.